Yesterday, over 75,000 Kaiser Permanente workers launched the biggest healthcare strike in American history. Now, workers say that the strike, which is scheduled to last through Saturday morning, is not just for them, but also for their patients who right now are experiencing longer wait times, terrible care as a result of the healthcare workers being stretched thin and understaffed, and there are low staffing ratios. These are issues that the nurses have been bringing up over and over again, and now they feel that they have no choice but to engage in this strike in order to secure the staffing that they need in order to provide the care that they feel their patients deserve. So the contract between the workers and Kaiser expired last week, and it was written before the pandemic. Since then, though, the workers say that conditions have gotten much worse for them. For instance, Kevin Darden, a striking Kaiser employee who registers patients at Sunnyside Medical Center in Oregon, said his departure has been, his department, I should say. His department has been cut from roughly 60 to 40 full-time employees since the start of the coronavirus pandemic, even as we get messages every quarter that patient volumes are going up. The big thing is we're burnt out. I hear you, Kevin. People are doing double work, double and triple the work. And you look at jobs in fast food and everything is $20 an hour and up. We clean blood and disinfect bodies. Joanna Isaiah, a ward clerk transcriber for Kaiser Permanente, who is on strike in Los Angeles, told CNN she is often the only person manning her unit due to a lack of new hires. Sometimes our operating room can be backed up if we can't get patients out of the OR fast enough into the recovery unit. It's really bad for the frontline healthcare workers when we're trying to work with the patients and get them to where they need, but we don't have the staff. So the lack of staff is really like the heart of the complaints that you're hearing from the Kaiser Permanente workers here. And according to a recent survey of 33,000 Kaiser employees, 2/3 of workers said that they had seen care delayed or just flat out denied thanks to short staffing. By the way, I've personally experienced that with a loved one, and it was awful. So they're not wrong when they mention this.
Yeah, 100%. My mother-in-law was a nurse. She retired, and I said, "Do you miss it at all?" She's like, "No, we were so overworked. No, I don't miss it." And so, look, labor is getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's driving the companies crazy. They don't like to pay their employees as much. They don't mind paying their executives, but they do mind paying their employees. And so obviously they're making very compelling arguments here. Anna, what's Kaiser's financial situation? Can they bear some of this cost?
Okay, so let's actually get into the financial situation. So workers are asking for additional investments in staffing as well as increased pay. Specifically, the coalition of Kaiser Permanente unions is attempting to negotiate. I don't think this is unreasonable. We're talking about like professionals, okay? They're asking to negotiate for a $25 per hour minimum wage for all employees, okay? Along with an annual pay increase of 7% for the first 2 years of the contract, and then 6.25% for the remaining 2 years. Thus far, Kaiser has countered with a minimum wage of between $21 and $23 per hour, with annual raises of between 3 to 4%. And look, is that a lowball offer? Let me give you their financials. It's a little different from what we've experienced with, say, the writer's strike, where the studio executives are like rolling in the dough and they can certainly afford to pay the writers more. It's different from the what the United Auto Workers are dealing with, where the executives for the big three are raking in the dough with like $29 million in compensation a year. So Kaiser Permanente, the nation's largest nonprofit health maintenance organization, reported $2.1 billion in net income. That's income, so that's not profits, in the second quarter of this year alone, keeping it well on track to easily make up for a reported net loss in 2022. The only year since 2007 that the company reported losing money. Kaiser recorded an all-time record of $8.1 billion net income in 2021. So again, I just want to reiterate, because I want to be as fair as possible, net income is different from sheer profits, right? In 2021, Kaiser's CEO, though, was compensated more than $16 million. And it has investments of $113 billion in industries ranging from fossil fuels to casinos to for-profit prisons. In addition, Kaiser's nonprofit structure allows it to pay no income taxes on its earnings and extremely limited property taxes. So that's the full story. You know what their net income is, you know what they pay their CEO, you know the tax breaks that they get to enjoy. I do think that they can meet the healthcare workers, where they're at right now with this negotiation. We'll see if they'll actually do it.
Yeah, and so they had a good year in 2021, and so they compensated their CEO well. Okay, I get it. But then when the rest of your workers say, okay, how about us? Well, you got to take care of them too. And so that's part of how you run a company. But these days, of course, companies, generally speaking, are not in favor of that. They just, the stock market needs them to go up 15% every year. So they're pretty brutal about it. Now, Kaiser is a kind of an oddball situation. It is nonprofit, it's a little bit more complicated, and they did lose money last year. So that's a little different than all of the other cases where
it's like record profit,
record
car
profit. Companies and everyone else is making unbelievable record profit. Some industries in the trillions of dollars, and then when they say they don't have it, spare me, brother. So, but if they lost money in 2022, at least they have some case for not being flush with cash, which sets them apart from everyone else.
And Kaiser officials say that their employees earn, basically they earn higher wages and benefits compared to other healthcare employees that work in other places and receive nearly $1 billion in special benefits during the pandemic. But look, that somewhat addresses or at least responds to the concerns about pay. The real concern that I'm hearing over and over again from these healthcare workers is, listen, we are stretched too thin. We are not able to provide adequate care. We need to deal with the staffing issue. We need more workers.
Guys, think about it. If you pay someone 7% more, 10% more, instead of hiring a whole nother person, if you pay them 10% more, you just save 90% because you didn't hire the other person, you're just making them do two people's jobs. But I'm not here to negotiate this particular strike. They're gonna have to figure out. And this is true of all strikes and negotiations and labor and management, et cetera. It depends on the company. It sometimes depends on the size of the company, the profitability of the company, et cetera. So we're not here to convict Kaiser. But we are in favor of the labor movement overall. We are in favor of workers standing up for themselves and saying, if you're gonna make profits in most of the years and huge profits and the executives get it, you should share it with labor as well, which of course makes sense.
And finally, if you are a patient with Kaiser and you're wondering, oh my God, does this mean I'm not gonna get the healthcare or the treatments I need? Kaiser Permanente has said that all hospitals and emergency departments will remain open during the work stoppage, but elective procedures may have to be postponed. And as I mentioned, the strike will go on until Saturday morning.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. We really appreciate it, guys. And we appreciate it if you become members because that allows us to be independent, honest, progressive, all the things that you don't get from corporate media. And all of that is because of you guys. Hit the join button below and become one of us, become a Young Turk.